I mean, the best parts about Star Wars is there is no good or evil. It depends on what side you're standing on.
There is no good and evil.
Good is a point of view, Anakin.
This stance is quite popular in woke culture. It's called moral relativism. And moral relativism is a philosophy that represents the idea that values such as good and evil are subjective, that there is no objective morality, and that there is no such thing as right and wrong, good or evil. In moral relativism, ideas of good and evil are merely personal or socially based, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But why is Hollywood today so bent on relativism and wokeness? And the answer is corrupted postmodernism. And postmodernism got corrupted just as Anakin got corrupted by the dark side.
Liar!
You see, postmodernism started out as a good thing, by trying to say that everything in the world that we see and rely on isn't purely 100% objective, but that it all passes through a subjective lens. But over time, it got corrupted by people stating that there's no objectivity whatsoever, and that all that is and matters is subjectivity or how I see the world, which is again completely wrong. A knife will always cut a banana, no matter what words we use for knife, cut or banana, and no amount of interpretation or subjectivity will change that simple fact. For these people, objective truth and value systems are non-existent. Everything goes. And if you try to say otherwise, you'll be accused of being a powermonger, gender denier, racist, ideologist, imperialist, or basically a white person. Rationality has no place with them, only feelings. They can't stand excellence because it uses a hierarchy, a better or worse. That's why they think they're as good as writer as Stephen King, because there's no better or worse. No value is above any other value. There's no objective truth. And all of this is valid because there's no objective truth. My perspective is as good as yours. For them, everything is relative. But they're confused. All perspectives don't have the same merit nor the same quality. And even though everything is relative, that doesn't mean nothing is better. It means that some things and perspectives are relatively better than others all the time. Don Quixote is objectively a 1,000-page book that weighs, 250 grams and has 0.1 liters of ink in it. But if you want to know the meaning of the novel, you will have to read it and enter into its interiority, its meaning, its intentions, its depths. And the only way you can do that is by interpretation and introspection. What does this sentence mean? What does this paragraph mean? What does this chapter mean? What does this book mean? This novel can be interpreted in many ways, but no matter how you spin it, this isn't a story about a zombie apocalypse, and it will never be. It's a perspective on the novel, but it's a wrong one. It isn't equal to other more correct perspectives. You can make objective claims about subjective interpretations. A subjective interpretation is us reading Don Quixote and understanding what the book is about, but we can make an objective claim about this subjective interpretation. So how does this all connect to the broader point of bad shows and movies? Watching a show or a movie and interpreting its quality is subjective, but we can objectively make claims about subjective experiences. By saying that Empire Strikes Back is great and saying that Acolyte sucks. Lucas wrote Star Wars to be a classic story of good versus evil objectively. But when looked at the postmodernistic madness, you can reverse the good and the bad guys depending on the side you stand on. It's a perspective, but it's a wrong one, like Don Quixote being about zombie apocalypse. We're not talking about a nuanced piece of cinema where you can look at both sides and see how the supposedly bad guys are actually good guys and vice versa, such as Blade Runner, Falling Down, Fight Club, or even Pitch Black. Star Wars is about the good guys, the Jedi, defeating the bad guys, the Sith. The Jedi aren't good guys in appearance, they are the good guys. And Sith aren't misrepresented, they are the bad guys. The Empire destroyed an entire planet full of peaceful civilians. They burned Owen and Beru to death. They tortured Princess Leia. They killed everyone aboard the Tantive 4 after they had surrendered. How is this perspective of Sith being good equal to Sith being bad? It's not. It's a perspective, but it's a wrong one.
You can look at any angle and see yourself relayed through all the characters.
And Hollywood today embraced moral relativism because they moved from morality that was pre-given through a religious doctrine to a morality that's constructed in the interpersonal space. where we together decide what is and isn't moral. And since most people in Hollywood haven't personally gone through this complicated moral process, they simply follow what other people tell them is moral in Hollywood. But in this case, it's not God, but Hollywood directors, actors, and producers acting as God. And because good and evil means one thing to one culture and another to a different culture, it's all culturally relativistic for them. There's no universal definition of good and evil, it's simply constructed. So you get to choose what is good and what is evil for you. And that's how you get these absurd claims about Jedi being bad and Sith being good, as we have seen in Acolyte. This is how pluralism of thought transforms into relativism of value and collapses into nihilism of modern culture and widespread narcissism of Hollywood elites.
Good is a point of view, Anakin.
There is no good and evil.
Liar!